Join us as we journey into the past. Who were the people? What were they like? How did they begin and how did they end? Let's find out on The Fan of History, episode 14. Last time on The Fan of History, the Army of Assyria, led by Tukultu-ninurta II, stands at the Babylonian border. In 892 BC, King Shou usurped his nephew, King Yi, to become king of Zhou China. So, Dan, what happens next?
Well, a lot happens with Assyria. The king is, as you said, Tukultu-ninurta II. He will go on yearly campaigns to honor Ashur, the god of war, the one god of the Assyrians. He is a bit defensive. His main goal is to consolidate his father's conquests. But every time he does so, he goes a little bit further. His main target is Nairi. It's to the north, close to Lake Van. Mm-hmm. In what is today Turkey. But Tukultu-ninurta is about to invent something great that we'll talk a lot about in this episodes. Their main goal of the Assyrian is still to restore the Middle Assyrian Empire, and we are not there yet. And when we left Tukultu-ninurta II, he stood at the Babylonian border, but this has a peaceful resolution. For once. It doesn't happen that often.
Right.
Ancient times, but Tukultu-ninurta II and the Babylonian king Nabu-shuma-ukin I decides to marry each other's daughters. So there's a double marriage, and an alliance. Ancient agreements are between people and not between states, or that is between specific people. This is an agreement between Tukultu-ninurta II and Nabu-shuma-ukin I, not between Babylon and Syria. But still, this leads to a long period of peace between Babylon and Syria. And it will be so long that we will get used to it here on the show, but it is an exception.
Wow. So they couldn't make it an official, act of state? They just had to gentleman's agreement on this?
No, the concept didn't exist really. It was... If we make a deal, the deal is between you and me. If one of the parties die, then the deal is off and it has to be remade. So okay. The idea of the state as a partner in the deal doesn't exist, pretty much.
Wow, okay.
But this leaves Tukultu-ninurta time to go north then against the Nairi. And the Nairi are still not united. It's a lot of tribes in the mountains, but the mountains are difficult for the Assyrians. Mm-hmm. For many reasons, but one of them being that they don't have sufficient equipment. They are used to hang around in the desert and in Mesopotamia where it's warm. So as soon as weather turns bad in the mountains, the Assyrians don't like it very much. There are maybe 4 campaigns, possibly 3, in the years 889 to 886, and we don't really know what happens. But these are but 3 or 4 of a great many campaigns against the Nairi, and in the 860s we will see what this leads to. Eventually, Nabu-shuma-ukin does die, so his son Nabu-apli-adina becomes the king of Babylon. He will rule Babylon for a long time, from 888 BC to 855 BC. And Nabu-apli-adina apparently reconfirms this agreement because the alliance stays in place. And
would that have been the grandson at that point?
He's the son of Nabu-shuma-ukin.
Right, but I was wondering if he married that other guy's daughter, then the other ruler would be his grandfather.
Well, I think that he's an earlier son.
Ah, okay.
This is just 2 years after.
Oh. This is tiny baby taking over the kingdom. Okay.
Dina is actually a very good king for Babylon, so he will. So Babylon has been in a very dark place since the Bronze Age collapse. And now culture starts to return. We have writings from Babylon. There is also a shift in Babylonian fashion, which doesn't happen very often. We'll talk more about Nabu Apla in upcoming episodes.
All right.
Yeah. In 887 BC, the pharaoh Osirkon I dies. He was the second pharaoh of the 22nd dynasty, and he has been ruling Egypt from 922 BC to 887. And remember, this was a happy and prosperous time for Egypt. They were falling behind, but they didn't know it. And now things will go downhill for the 22nd dynasty. Egypt was divided when Shoshenq came to power. And now Egypt will be divided again very soon. We never found Osirkon's tomb, and it is probably super rich. Remember, he made that ridiculously large donation to the temples. And, so this is not like a puny Tutankhamun tomb. This is probably much larger. And there is no indication that it has been found and robbed, which we have for many other pharaohs.
Oh, wow.
We don't have. So this is one of the great treasures of Egypt, yet to be found. The succession is super unclear. And we actually don't really know how succession worked in Egypt. But the hypothesis is that succession went through the royal, to the females. You had to marry the daughter of the old pharaoh, and thus you were inclined to marry your sister if you wanted to take over after your father.
Right.
Manetho, he is the guy, the very late historian then of Greek descent, that gives us the dynasties, the numbering of the dynasties. And he has 3 or more kings in the next years following Osirkon's death. So we don't really know what happened there in 888 to 885, but when we come to 885 BC, there is a son of Osirkon, who is the pharaoh. He's the only pharaoh, and his name is Takelot I. And Takelot will be the third name of the 22nd dynasty, so many of them will be Osirkon's, Takelots, or Shoshenqs.
Ah, okay.
And the Libyan dynasty, the 22nd dynasty, will go on still for 150 years. So we have a lot of these guys coming up, and it will be extremely confusing. So, but right now, it's still simple. We have Takelot I being the one pharaoh of Egypt for the rest of this decade.
Good, I like it simple. His names are very long.
Give me 100 years, and I don't even know what's going on. And I doubt, actually, that anybody does.
Yeah.
In 886 BC, we have a rebellion in South China. It seems that the nobles of China has tired of King Chao and his tyranny. And the sources for these are not very good. So the king's half-brother Sheng disappears. The many lords restore King Yi. Remember, he was deposed, but his son, who is confusingly named King Yi, becomes the king of Zhou China, of Zhou China, sorry. We don't know what happened to King Shao, and his reign of Zhou China was between 891 and 886 BC. So now order restored in China, young King Yi is the king.
Is he more of a puppet king, or is he actually end up being a true ruler?
This line is extremely well respected, so they never sort of think of installing anybody else as the king of Zhou China. So the Zhou royal line will go on for a long time, and I think this guy is a decent king.
Okay.
We don't know a whole lot about him.
Ah.
But I tell you who we know more about. Tukultu-inurta II. And as his fashion is, he will go to war in 886 BC. Now he is goes on the last of the campaigns against the Nairi, and he travels north, and he comes to the source of the Tigris River, and that is in the mountains. And there, that area is controlled by the Bitsamani tribe, and the Bitsamani are conquered and plundered, and they have a ruler called Amebal, for some reason. Apparently there are several. So Amebal, he is forced to swear an oath to Tukultu-inurta II to always remain his loyal vassal. And this is further north than Adad-nirari II ever went, so Tukultu-inurta has now officially outdone his father. So high on this victory, he also goes up another river, the Greater Sab River, which goes east into the Zagros Mountains in what is today Iran. And there, the mountain tribes are causing trouble. The mountain tribes are still disunified and unorganized, but among them are the Persians and Medes, and they have horses. And the Tukultu-inurta really needs horses.
Mm-hmm. So
he has. Sorry?
I was just going to say, why does he need all these horses?
Well, he has a new idea for warfare. Tukultu-inurta II, or somebody working for him, invents cavalry.
Huh.
In this decade.
Wow.
And it might even be from this very campaign in 886 BC. Of course, it's a probably stolen idea that these mountain peoples have done something similar. But the hypothesis is that the Assyrians bring the war chariots, as the war chariots have been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Zagros Mountains, it's hard to drive your chariot. So when you get to a point where you can't drive the chariot, maybe the horses were disconnected from the chariots, and then they had to ride the horses. And then what if we fight from the horses?
Right.
So, and a sign that this is actually the invention of cavalry is that it's extremely weird how they fight from horseback. So they don't have saddles, they don't have stirrups, so actually hitting somebody with a weapon from the horse is very hard.
I was going to say, it sounds super dangerous. I've been atop my fair share of horses, and I do not want to do anything bareback that would require swinging or hitting.
People will learn how to use lances and spears from horses without saddles or stirrups, but imagine swinging a sword or an axe.
No.
So the way they fight from horses is that you have 2 horses and 2 riders, and they're a team. And one rider has control of both horses.
Huh.
And the other guy fires a bow.
Okay.
So let me steer your horse while you fire your bow.
Yeah. Here, can you hold these reins for a second? I need to shoot this bow a few times.
All the time. So I wonder if you there's the enemy, take my reins, or if you just one guy is on alert with a bow and the other guy just steers both horses.
So there's basically like a pilot and a gunner on this 2-horse team.
Yeah, and the Assyrians have similar ideas in this early army with their bowmen. So there is a guy there's a 2-man foot team as well, where one guy is an archer and the other guy carries an enormous shield that can cover both of them.
That kind of makes sense.
This doesn't seem very efficient, but
no.
Apparently it's all the rage because the Assyrians are the best army in the world.
Right. Because I was thinking, if you were spending all that time and energy with 2 horses, just because, I guess, is that a necessity? Because if you don't have any sort of way to stabilize yourself, you're going to have someone do it, especially ants steer.
If everybody else is insisting on using war chariots, you are extremely mobile compared to them.
Oh, yeah. Very true.
I've heard many people who know much more about ancient warfare than I do talk about how bad war chariots are. they're like always bad when you hear experts. They break, they can't go to certain places. It just seems very strange that people insisted on using them for almost 2,000 years. Or more than 2,000 years. There were still war chariots that Julius Caesar ran into.
Wow. I guess we have no other better idea.
Yeah, but Tukultu-inurta II had a better idea, and in 885 BC, it's time to take the new cavalry on tour. So he goes around the borders of his fledgling empire and beats up the Aramean tribes. And we have 2 inscriptions found from this campaign in 885 BC, but there is almost no serious opposition. He just wins as soon as he shows up, and they see these 2-man horse teams, and they go, "No, what's that? Let's give up."
They can't handle the double horse action. It's too much for them.
Double horses, what are we going to do? There is also a claim for the very first time that there was hostile action that made the Assyrians go to war this time. The Assyrians never need a reason to go to war. They are not like the Romans who claim that every war is defensive.
Right.
The Assyrians are proud that they go around robbing people. But this time they actually claim that some Arameans did something before this war. And that's the first. Tukultu-ninurta also decides to live part-time in Nineveh and part-time in the capital Ashur. And Nineveh is more strategically located. Ashur is sort of close to Babylon and far off from the action. So now when he has an alliance with Babylon, he doesn't need to be near Babylon. So it takes a lot longer to go to war if he is in Ashur. And it seems that he might be dissatisfied with the ancient capital. And Tukultu-inurta is rather old. Probably we never know the age of these ancient the Egyptian Assyrian kings. But he has a grown-up son called Ashur-nasir-pal. And maybe he's complaining to the son that the capital is in the wrong place. Which is a very new idea then, because the Assyrians are conservative and the capital has been in the same place for a very long time.
Right.
1,000 years or so. But Tukultu-ninurta has already shown that he is ready to invent new things.
So would they actually... So is this leading up to actually moving the entire capital?
See what's happening.
More to come.
A big event happens in 884 BC. And this is a bit controversial, and there are almost nothing I have received so much flack for on YouTube like this statement.
Right.
But in 884 BC, a guy named Omri founds the kingdom of Israel. And there's a major shift in the Old Testament for the year 884 BC, because everything that has happened before 884 BC is extremely hard to coordinate with any evidence we have. But now suddenly we have other non-Jewish sources. We have archaeology, and everything points to the fact that the kingdom of Israel actually starts this very year. The Assyrians will refer to Israel as the house of Omri for years to come. There is the Meshai Stele in Moab that talks about Omri. On the black obelisk of Shalmaneser III that we'll talk a lot about. They also mention the house of Omri. And it seems that this guy is the real thing. It's a historical person.
Right.
But some researchers don't even consider Omri real, but later Israel kings as the first kings of Israel.
I was about to ask, why is it so controversial? Is it just due to the fact that about the researchers not considering him real, or is it more...
The controversial thing is to consider all the kings of Israel before Omri not real, like David and Solomon. Which is the particular tender spot.
Right, I gotcha.
Yeah, I think we talked about that before, so I won't go into more detail now. But Omri has his capital in Tirsa. And you probably never heard of Tirsa. Omri realizes this is a poor location for capital. It's too close to Aram Damascus, which is a rising power and the first truly organized state of Arameans. Omri will move the capital. I mean, the reason that Omri is discredited by ancient history is that he is not a Jew. He doesn't believe that he is not of the faith of Yahweh. Later kings will be, and they seem to be sort of embarrassed at the fact that their great kingdom was founded by somebody who wasn't. Because as a Canaanite, or as a person in that area, he's of course a polytheist who believes in many gods. So I will go further with this claim later when we get to the first Jewish king of Israel, who I actually think is the one responsible for the discrediting of Omri. But right now, Omri is the king of Israel, and there's a new kingdom in Palestine. We don't know about the kingdom of Judah, but it is very likely that Judah does not exist at all as an organized state, and that it comes much later. But if you believe the Old Testament fully, of course, Judah is around, but there is almost zero evidence for that. And Jerusalem is probably around, but a very unimportant place. Remember that Shoshenq didn't mention it in his great raid of 925 BC.
Okay.
What else? Where do you want to go next?
So, well, we haven't talked about them in a while, but what's going on with the Olmecs?
Yeah, the Olmecs. They still don't have any written language, we don't really know.
Right.
But we have this amazing art made of jade, clay, basalt, and greenstone. Very naturalistic art, and of course this is not a great subject for podcasts, so
yeah.
go to our YouTube channel and check out the episode for this decade.
All right, let's talk about beautiful art on the radio.
But it's actually very special in its style and extremely interesting. So, or just Google Olmec art, because this is the period where they begin their great artwork, or most of the best pieces are from about this period. It's still quite early in Olmec civilization, but they make some interesting pieces. Okay, let's head somewhere else.
What about back in Europe? What's going on in Europe? Yeah.
Still in the Dark Age, but now the Villanovans are in their late phase.
Okay.
And we will soon be talking about what's going on in Greece, but it's still a little bit early. But there is something interesting going on in Spain, and this is so strange, because we thought we knew about Phoenician colonies, and when the Great Colonization period happens in the 8th century BC, it seems that the Greeks are like slightly later than the Phoenicians, but that the Phoenicians haven't colonized heavily. But we have found evidence of Phoenician pottery in Plaza de las Monjas in Huelva in Spain. And this is maybe the earliest evidence of Phoenician colony. And it's so early, the early 9th century BC. It's there seems to be no real motivation for the Phoenicians to go across the entire Mediterranean. Their base is in Lebanon.
Right, that's what I was wondering. It's like, why would they stretch out so thin?
But it's very clearly Phoenician. There are Phoenician things there. There's so many Phoenician things that it seems that there were Phoenicians there as well. Maybe they just sold a big load of stuff to... But how could anyone from Huelva travel to Lebanon? So it's weird, but it seems that there is a colony. Of course, Huelva is a great place to have a colony, because Spain is very rich in many precious metals and iron. But it seems that Phoenician colonization started this early. And that's quite amazing. The Greeks are not going anywhere except over the Ionian yet. So the Phoenicians are way ahead of them. But the nature of Phoenician colonization is very unintrusive, actually. They tend to build a trading post and trade. And that's what they do. They don't change the landscape or form states or... Yeah, it's just build a trading station on an island or on an easily defended site and then trade with people.
So they basically come in and make themselves wanted.
Yes.
Or and useful.
They are probably welcome. I think they are... the native peoples have different opinions when the Greeks show up, but I think they're quite good to have nearby. And this is, of course, the foundation. The first Phoenician presence in Spain is what will later lead to Nova Carthage and the power base of Hannibal in his great war against Rome. But that's in the 3rd century BC. So.
I thought that was a ways off, but yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's it for this decade. The greatest thing being, of course, the invention of cavalry. There are other claims for this invention, but I think Tukultu-ninurta II's claim is quite solid.
All right. Well, I guess we'll call this an episode, but next time, are we going to continue with the 880s?
Yes.
All right.
So we split it into a two-parter because a big change happens in Assyria. And I thought that this invention of cavalry thing was big enough to be the first episode.
Oh, right. Well, tune in. Looks like we're going to see the Neo-Assyrian Empire take things to a new level when Ashur-nasir-pal II becomes the chosen king of Ashur.
Yes.
Also, we'll learn why you name him the Lord of Massacres.
Yeah. There will probably be an episode named the Lord of Massacres, so we might not learn all about that next time. Ashur-nasir-pal is a different kind of Assyrian king.
All right. Well, folks, please check us out if you enjoyed the podcast. We do have a Patreon, patreon.com/fanofhistory. Also Facebook/fanofhistory. Twitter, @TheFanOfHistory. And also, we have a website, thefanofhistory.wordpress.com. Okay, so I guess that'll be it for today and for...
No,
what?
It won't.
What?
Because it's time for Assyrian or Babylonian.
Oh no, the hardest game I've ever played.
Are you ready?
I'm as ready as I'm gonna be.
Okay, this time the subject is people.
People. Okay.
And you have 5 names of
Gotcha.
Persons, and you have to tell me if they were Assyrian or Babylonian.
Oh no.
If you get 3 right, you win.
Excellent.
Less than 3 right, you lose.
Oh, dang it. Okay. I'll do my best. Hit me.
The first person is Shamash Mudamik.
Shamash Mudamik. I'm going to say...
Babylonian.
Babylonian.
You're right.
Yes.
Yeah,
One.
The king in 920 to 900 BC, so we just talked about him. Now it gets harder.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
Second person is Nabu-Nassar.
Nabu-Nassar?
Yes.
I remember the name. Nabu-Nassar.
It sounds similar to another name, so you might remember the other name.
Okay. I am going to say Assyrian.
No, it's another Babylonian king.
Dang it.
1-1. And Nabu-Nassar is a later Babylonian king that will do a lot of interesting stuff. So we'll talk about him later. Okay, the third person is Sennacherib.
Sennacherib.
Yes.
Let me think. Sennacherib. Have I heard anything like that before?
Probably have.
I think so. Then I'm going to go...
You could get a hint.
Okay, give me a hint.
There is a famous poem about him.
It's a famous poem?
Yes. By Lord Byron.
Oh, wow. Then I'm going to say Babylonian.
No, he's Assyrian.
Oh, God.
The Assyrian came down like a wolf of the fold. Yes.
Okay.
We'll talk about that in 701 BC.
701, okay.
One of the great Assyrian kings, actually.
Okay.
You're 1-2 now.
It all comes down. It's coming down to the wire.
Yes. And now you'll get a really hard name.
Oh, no.
Kandalaru.
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 Kandalaru. Yes. Can I have that in the form of a song, please?
It's coming for you.
Kandalaru. I'm going to say... I'm going to go Assyrian again.
This was a trick question in your favor because Kandalaru is a Babylonian king.
Okay.
It is suspected that he is actually another name for the Assyrian king of the time. So I'll give you a point for Assyrian.
He was a hidden Assyrian.
Yes. Because later some Assyrian kings will claim Babylonian kingship as well, but when they do, they assume a Babylonian king's name. So
okay. All right.
It might have been Ashurbanipal, but he's recorded as king for Babylon in 648 to 627 BC. And that is a very interesting time, because it's the time when the Assyrian Empire is at its biggest.
Oh, okay. That is interesting.
Including Babylon. Okay, it all comes down to this final king.
The last one.
Gave it away. They were all kings, so maybe that's not
right.
too big a deal. Okay, you need to sharpen your skills now. Here is the final guy. Eriba Marduk.
Eriba Marduk. That Marduk sounds familiar.
Yes, it should be.
It should be familiar. Maybe I should go back. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause, and we're going to go back and listen to all the old episodes.
Don't do that.
Oh, dang it. But folks, here's what you can do. You can pause and go back and re-listen to all the old episodes. But I am going to go with Assyrian.
No!
Oh, gosh.
Marduk is the main god of the Babylonians.
Okay.
No, he's a Babylonian king.
I was like, why does Marduk sound so familiar? I know we've talked about it.
It's one of the big problems with the fact that the Assyrians respect the Babylonians so much.
Right.
But then they have this weird monotheism where Ashur is all gods. So Marduk sometimes becomes more important than Ashur, and it makes no sense. But the Assyrians are like, oh, Marduk, that's the god of Babylon. Wow, he's really powerful. They start worshipping him instead, and the Assyrian king has to bring them back to the fold.
Huh. All right. Well, that is interesting. Well,
another loss at Assyrian or Babylonian.
Oh no, I'm terrible at this game.
Next time, will the women.
All right. That ought to give me an edge for some reason. I have no idea why.
Ancient Mesopotamian babes.
Yay.
So, for that, in episode 15.
Heck yeah. Everybody tune in. Well, folks, for the fan of history, I am Brennan.
I'm Dan.
Thank you for listening.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Patreon.com/fanofhistory. Just $1 an episode would help us out. Thanks, and see you next time.